The story of Katie Luther is really a fascinating one, but it's really helpful to go back and look at the whole phenomenon of why nuns and monks were leaving convents and monasteries. First of all, many of them were there more or less involuntarily. They'd been put there as children because perhaps there was no other place to put them, or they didn't have parents, or their parents didn't want them. They were raised there without really having a choice as to their lifestyle. And then something else came into it. In the medieval way of thinking, the lifestyle of a monk or a nun was considered more holy. In other words, those who were in that lifestyle were seen as having left the world, as serving God in a higher or better way than other people, than ordinary people. When Luther came along, he, of course, exploded that idea. Since we can do nothing to gain our salvation, to merit our salvation, the whole idea that we can do something that will be more pleasing to God than an ordinary pursuit is simply anathema to Luther. Now, the result of this is that all sorts of monks and nuns begin to leave monasteries and convents. Now, when women left the convent, the immediate question was, what do you do with them? Women in that age really didn't have a whole lot of options, as we would say today. Women got married. And so when nuns left the convent, they were expected to marry. Okay, so Katie and her fellow nuns leave the convent, and they came to Wittenberg. Now suddenly Luther has a whole group of young women that essentially he has to marry off. He has to find husbands for them, and he's pretty successful. There are various people in town, there are students who need wives, and so one by one they get married off. Katie is a little bit older when she comes out of the convent, and at first she lodges with the Cranachs, the famous painter, and she really learns there how to run a household. And Luther is looking around for a husband for her. There's a student who appears to like her, but his family is not all that enthusiastic about her. I mean, marrying a runaway nun, that was still somewhat questionable. And then there was an older man that was interested in Katie, but she was absolutely not interested in him. Well, time goes on, and you know, eventually, everyone's wondering what's going to happen to Katie, and Katie announces that she will marry either Luther or Amsdorf.
In 1525, Luther got married to an ex-nun named Katharina von Bora. And it's interesting, when he was challenged on this, some of the colleagues in Wittenberg said, oh, this is terrible, don't, it'll ruin the Reformation cause. And no, Luther gave 3 reasons for getting married. And here they are. The number 1 reason, to please his father. Not exactly very romantic, is it? Second reason, to spite the Pope. Again, not too romantic, is it? And the third, as a testimony in behalf of his approaching martyrdom that marriage was good for all. Now, there you wouldn't exactly find nice verses that Hallmark cards could use for a wedding, congratulations, or anything else. But the Protestant parsonage was founded that day. Don't forget how important that is. And anybody who has a clergyman for a father really had a vested interest in whether or not that particular marriage would work.
And the amazing thing is that this grew into a real love match. Not only did Martin and Katie truly respect each other, they grew to truly love each other. They had 6 children, 4 of whom lived to adulthood. That was typical in those days. About 1/3 of children died before reaching adulthood. And Katie proved to be a very good, a wonderful wife for Luther. She organized his life. She organized his household. You have to understand that dinner at the Luthers was not simply Martin, Katie, and the kids. All sorts of other people lived there. They took in various nieces and nephews. They took in aunts. They took in students. Dinner at the Luthers was usually at least 25 people. Now, you had to be organized to do that. And Katie was organized. She had a garden. She had livestock. She had an orchard. And she brewed beer. I could talk on and on, but